rotten hooker.
The very lies the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote.
Hey everyone, this is Thursday, May 12th. This is This Non-Religious Life. I'm your host, Ken. With me is our co-host, Jason.
Hello.
And Bob.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about crazy people and even crazier people. The first of the crazies,
Bob.
William Lane Craig.
Yeah.
For the viewers who might not know who William Lane Craig is, he really is the voice of moderate Christianity in America, supposedly. He's a very, very popular and, I hesitate to use the word well-spoken, but outspoken proponent of apologetics and Christian philosophy. He does have a doctorate. He's not just some diploma mill guy, but
From a real school.
yeah, from a real school.
That's good.
I don't see where. The Trinity. His master's from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Illinois,
That's a real school?
and he got his PhD in philosophy from the University of Birmingham in 1977, and he did his doctorate of theology under Wolfhart Pannenberg at the University of Munich in 1984. So, I mean, he's not like a Kent Hovind, Dr. Dino sort of guy where,
So
Patriot
he has
University.
legitimate academic
He
credentials.
does.
Well, that's good. I like to see that.
And he's reading some of his stuff, he's very thorough and he thinks a lot. I would say that whenever it comes to God, though, he sort of turns off his critical faculties.
Well, we'll see.
Well, I mean, he has a website called Reasonable Faith, and I think that's proof.
Oxymoronic.
Proof in the pudding, right there. Is faith is inherently unreasonable. Faith is the acceptance of structured ideas in spite of a lack of evidence or in spite of any evidence to the contrary.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what he did, because this is the
Okay,
this is
this is
potatoes
good.
of it. The part I like.
On his website, and I'll make this available for the show notes, he received 2 questions about the Israelite judgment of the Canaanites. This is when, in Deuteronomy 7 and Deuteronomy 20, when the Israelites are coming out of bondage after the Exodus, they end up coming up into Canaan and they slaughter men, women, children, animals, everything. Like they kill everyone and everything living in Canaan, and essentially he has a fairly
the
lengthy
important thing
response.
is they killed women and children.
Women and children,
Innocent women and children.
infants.
And that's one of those things that I like to point out when people throw a biblical text at me about how great it is. I like to point at that and say, well, look, see, this is not the work of a nice guy.
Yeah, but he has a few things. I mean, it's a fairly lengthy response, and I mean, right here, scrolling through, it takes me a few minutes. And he has there's a few problems with his reasoning, and the first is he provides this sort of, he dances around the argument, and it's sort of like genocide's good so long as God mandates it's okay.
Right, and that we can take apart the rest of his argument, but I want to just go on record as saying that is my problem with his stance is that it's okay to commit genocide, kill women and children innocently, or take the lives of innocents as long as God says it's okay. Then everything's hunky-dory.
Yeah, exactly. So one of his basic arguments is this horrible syllogism he provides. It says, if God does not exist, objective moral values do not exist. Objective moral values do exist. Therefore, God exists. And it's such a, he provides no structure to tie moral values to the existence of God. He just places it out there. These two things are the same thing. Therefore, this.
Yeah, but you know that also runs contrary to his argument, where even by his own logic, what he in his statement about where he's reconciling genocide with biblical scripture, he also says that the terms good and evil don't even really apply to God. So how could the term morality apply to God?
Moreover, even the term morality, the term objective. I mean, objective morality means that there are no, like, it is not subjective at all. There are no cases where something is, like, okay if it's objectively immoral. So genocide, I mean, that it places God outside of objectivism, which then destroys
there is
objectivism.
Objective morality.
Of course,
we've shown that. That's like are you familiar with the lever? The lever and I think it's called the trolley problem or the lever problem, where and it's an objective morality problem, and it's a thought experiment. And so it goes like this: there is a trolley that is a runaway trolley down a track, and it is going to plow into a group of people and kill 50 people. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's going to happen. However, there is an instance where you can pull a lever, and that lever will cause the trolley to switch tracks, and it will only kill one person. And so objectively, we all know that what you would do is you would pull the lever. I mean, you know, how many of us would say that they wouldn't do that?
Exactly. It's a utilitarian argument that is.
But now they changed the problem a little bit. Now the problem becomes you don't just pull a lever; you have to push someone in front of the trolley. If you push them in front of the trolley, then it doesn't reach the group of 50 that are standing unaware. And so in this instance, you have to, you're not just pulling a lever, you yourself are killing a person, and it would save the lives of 50. And that's where people start to have problems with it. And I think that illustrates objective morality perfectly.
Of course. I mean, there are things that are objectively moral or immoral. But for the sake of William Lane Craig's argument, he's saying that objective morality is that which is dictated by God. But if God is in himself the exception, then the morality provided by God is not objective, because he himself is.
Then it would be absolute, wouldn't it?
It's
if
subjective.
God decrees what it is.
It's completely subjective. It's just the subjective criteria is that this is moral unless you're me, and that's not objective morality.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I definitely see that. I mean, but all right, but that sort of presupposes that this divine lawgiver is actually, well, one, that he's moral, and two, that he's good, and that he actually exists. But that's another story.
Yeah. But this ties into the moral law argument, and this is what I mean. This is one of the biggest, like the big four arguments for the existence of God. People say that objective morality does exist, therefore God exists. And I mean, there are a bunch of problems with this. Like, you know, there's the problem of theodicy, like the root of evil. Like, evil exists. I mean, that would undermine the idea that God is moral. If God is absolute, like if Yahweh is all powerful and does exist, and he's supposedly good, then where does evil come from?
Right, and that's the problem of evil.
Yes.
If God is all powerful and God is all knowing, why is there evil?
Yeah. Why do people die of cancer? Like the tsunami in Japan, and people say, you know, in a best case scenario there would have to be suffering and blah blah blah. But, I mean, is God capable of perpetual miracles is a problem. Like, if if the underwater
Who was it
earthquake.
that said that the tsunami was punishment?
Oh, there's that video that was.
It was somebody right here. It was the regent guy that was.
Pat Robertson.
Yeah, Robertson said that
But he
was.
says that
Pat
for
Robertson says that
Right,
everything.
anything that ever happens, he says,
is
"Oh,
it
well,
because
The earthquake in
gays?
Haiti was because of devil worshippers and.
It was because,
Yeah.
and that what was it? It was because of gays and because of women, and it was.
Oh,
yeah, but what if that tsunami like wrecked the coast in Sri Lanka and those people were Buddhists or Muslims? Like they don't,
Yeah.
they're not even Christians. So how does a Christian God figure into that calculus? Unless you have to have the hubris to say that I'm right and everybody else is wrong.
That is religion in and of itself, you know.
That's more of
Religion
American
is
philosophy
hubris.
than anything else.
Maybe that's why we're so religious as a country. We're used to saying we're right anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are other countries more religious than us in terms of
Sure.
practice, but it is definitely an American
Well, I believe
viewpoint that we must be right because for whatever reason we've been.
But as far as industrialized nations, I think the United States is the second most religious, behind Turkey.
I just, that idea of the origin of evil. If you make those three statements, God is all powerful, God is omniscient, evil exists. Those three statements are mutually exclusive. You cannot have all three.
Yeah, I mean, on top of the fact that omnipotence in and of itself is self-refuting. You know, if God is all powerful, could He create a stone so heavy that He Himself could not lift?
Yeah, that was a funny
Could
George
God
Carlin bit too.
could God create a being more powerful than Himself? Could God become not God?
Yeah.
Well, like those are philosophical questions that I think are, get you running around in a logical circle, and it's fun to think about, but I don't necessarily think that it.
Well,
So far, God has refused to come down to the lab for us to experiment on. So I think the Godonkin experiment is the best that we have.
I do get kind of agitated when things happen and people proclaim it a miracle and that it's according to God's plan. Like for instance, when Pope John Paul was shot, and he was very nearly killed, and the news reports coming out were that had the bullet traveled another inch, it would have pierced his heart and likely killed him. And they say, it was a miracle.
they're doing that right now.
God came down and altered the laws of physics to make sure that bullet didn't hit his heart. And my question is, well, why didn't God just turn the bullet to air anyway? That would have been a real miracle. Like not get shot at all. And then then that whole idea just sort of pisses me off a little bit because it completely overshadows the skill and effort and work of the surgeons that operated on him and saved his life. They get completely discounted.
Yeah. That's not a miracle. That's bad aim, is what that is. That's
or
wind resistance,
or maybe it would have killed him, and it was the skill of the surgeons that attended to him that did it. And of course, somebody's going to say, "Well, their hands were guided by God," and that's like,
of course,
you just can't prove that that's right or wrong. Well then it was all part of this plan that. This one guy would grow up to be a surgeon who would one day, save the life of the. I don't buy that.
But
they're
that's the thing.
Plan crap.
If that's, and predestination is the logical outcome of, omnipotence too.
Right. Omniscience implies predestination.
Exactly. If God knows you're going to do something before you do it, if anyone knows, absolutely 100% knows the outcome of everything before it happens, then there is no free will. And that means, but then that completely destroys the idea of a just God, because God can't be just. Things happen the way they do, period. You have no choice. Punishment for being a sinner is moot, because you have no choice.
That was part of the plan that you would do that. It was preordained. That drives me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, going back to you about the Pope being shot and God that's happening right now. You know, all the horrible tornadoes that are happening here in the States. There's massive tornado ripped through a town, but spared a church. And on CNN, they did a whole thing about it. This is in Alabama, talking about how everything around the church is destroyed, but you can walk into the church and it's perfect, like it's never been touched. And that's because, you know, God protects the church.
That's good to know. But I mean,
or that
a couple of years ago in Alabama, they saw a leprechaun in a tree, and it was just a plastic bag, you know. So I
think that's.
Yeah.
I think that's just sort of the law of large numbers. If you count how many hurricanes have ever been, and how many churches were destroyed in hurricanes, eventually one church is going to get missed by a hurricane or a tornado. And let's see, should if a tornado misses a car wash, does that mean we need to go and celebrate the divine providence of a car wash being missed by a tornado? It happens all the time.
Of course. And I mean, if it's that brings me to the problem of things being guided by God's hand. Like, what about the 300 people that died, you know, because of these tornadoes? Like, you know, where was God's hand then?
So I like talking about this idea of predestination because it gets me spun up, and two, it's pretty much like why I'm an atheist. I swear that is the reason, because I reject wholeheartedly the idea of predestination and preordination. And here's why. Because if there is a plan, if God has a plan for me, at no time was I ever consulted about the plan. No one ever asked me if that's the plan that I wanted. I don't ever get a choice. And that is the part that I reject.
Mm-hmm. But you're given the choice. You're given the choice to either follow or not follow.
But not in predestination. Because if God is omnipotent and knows everything, then you have no choice. Like, if you're going to be an atheist, that's it.
Well, we were talking about this the other night. The Bible says, like 100,000 people are on it.
144,000 people in Revelation. I think it's chapter 16.
Will only enter heaven, so therefore...
And that'll be on May 21st.
Coming up next week.
Coming up. Yeah.
So if there's only like 144,000 people who are entering heaven, that means everything's predetermined, and you can be an atheist because you're not going to heaven because you're not on that list anyway.
Well, if you're defiled by women, you're not getting into heaven either.
Well, that's true. Thank God.
What does that mean?
World of Warcraft.
That's the terminology.
Defiled by women?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound that.
It's 100.
I know. I'm like, where do I sign up for that? Where are these women?
I don't know. It might be bad. I don't know.
That's just what a godless heathen would say, anyway.
Yeah, all gonna burn. Yes, we know.
The idea of predestination just it rubs me absolutely the wrong way, and I like to think, like, I believe that I have free will, and I know that there's a psychological component to free will, that we are inclined to make choices based on your psychology, your upbringing, the chemistry of your brain. I get that, okay? But the fact that there is a man in the sky that has a book with my name in it and a plan for me that I had no choice in. No one ever asked me whether I wanted that plan or not. That's the part that bothers me. And again, it comes back to the question of evil. Like, how could the omniscient, omnipresent, divine being not care that there's suffering in the world?
Absolutely.
And then people will say, well, that's God's plan.
Well, I mean, going back to the guy that we were talking about at the top of the show, that he says it was all right for, genocide to happen. If you... That's why they're suffering, because it doesn't matter. Because what was it, a couple of weeks ago we talked about the manna with the fish. If God sets forth saying, yes, you can commit genocide in my name, then there's not going to be suffering. Because why would God put suffering in those individuals?
Well,
I mean, I'm just saying that would be If going by the same argument placed on pretty much as the non-humans, then it should be applied to.
Well, the thing that Craig does, where at least where I got out of it, where he says it's okay to do it in the name of God, he says that, well, it's okay to slaughter innocents, and it's because not only is it God's plan, but they are innocent and they get to go to heaven, so it's okay. Kill them, they get to go to heaven. It's all good. You know, they get the mansion in the sky.
I mean, that follows true to what God already does anyway with the flood and with all the other.
But again, whatever that plan is, at no point were those people given a choice in the plan. They didn't elect to be part of the plan, whatever that plan may be.
But you know, if He knows best, then it doesn't matter if you get a choice. I mean, it's like if the end result is going to be the ultimate gift where you're just going to be like, oh my God, this is fucking awesome. Thank you, God, for killing me or having me killed. Because this is paradise. I can live without any thought of my past life. And yeah, it doesn't matter.
But the Canaanites, I mean, according to Christianity, the Canaanites didn't end up going to heaven. The children did, but all the men and women went to hell. So it's like they had no choice. And part of Craig's argument is that, like, oh, God's just. He stayed as his punishment for 400 years while the Israelites were in Egypt. And he allowed the Canaanites because they weren't transgressing bad enough to be condemned to genocide. Well, I mean, if they were transgressing that bad, where was God? Where was He? Why didn't He come down and be like, hey, you know, He didn't just create the Israelites. He supposedly created everyone. Why didn't He go down and be like, hey, guys,
yeah, where's the merciful God in that?
Calm down. No, He lets them continue their ways and then commits what I consider as a huge hypocrisy of sending the Israelites to kill him, because two of the things Craig brings up is he brings up that they were committing child sacrifice and ritual prostitution. What about when God told Abraham to take Isaac and slit his throat? Like, and stayed his hand at the last minute. Abraham was all too willing to actually do it.
Yeah, but you know what cracks me up about that? So, okay, the Canaanites were practicing child sacrifice and what was it?
Ritual prostitution.
Ritual prostitution. So God says, all right, He tells the Israelites, you go kill them all, and I want you to kill all the children, and part of the spoils is you get the women. We're like, where's the justice in that?
Well, when they killed the Canaanites, they killed the women too.
After they had their way with them.
Exactly.
But I mean, you know what? If this is anything like Civilization, the game, or The Sims, I can totally understand why God did this, because you can suggest things to the things that you create. They're not ever going to do it because they have minds of their own, and it pisses you off, and you have to just destroy them. That's what happened with the flood. He was so mad about.
Is that what you like the Sims game? You get to play God.
Get to kill them when they don't do it. No.
I'm gonna wipe this civilization from the map. It's pissing me off.
I was
really
never
fun.
good with Sims. I would marry my Sim off and then box his spouse into a room until she died and take all the money and then remarry him.
No, a different game. Civilization is when you fight.
I love Civilization.
Nation. Yeah, I'd be the benevolent God. I'm like, oh, let them go. They're okay. They're not going to come kill us.
No, I'm the first to build the nuke.
Nuke them all.
And to use it many times. No. But anyway, I can relate to God because of that game, and because you can tell your cities and you can tell your people to build this stuff, and they'll build it, but in between the gaps of building, they don't ever do what's right. They never cultivate the crops right, and they never, go fuck them.
They need your divine hand, your benevolent guidance.
Anyway,
but I mean, like, about the prostitution though. What about Rahab, who was, according to the book of Matthew, one of like the ancestresses of Jesus? She was a harlot.
But it wasn't ritualized and in the name of God.
Okay, what about and like, they slaughtered the women because they weren't allowed to intermarry with the Canaanites. But what about Joseph, who married Asenath? She was an Egyptian who was the daughter of a priest, an Egyptian priest.
That's because God said it was okay.
Of course, because it's okay. It's like things that that pisses me off because it's objective morality according to like people like William Lane Craig, except for when it's not. Like it is always immoral, except for any time where I can pull some pretzel logic out of my ass and cite parts where God said it was okay.
Well, if God says it's okay, He created it. He can do whatever the hell He wants.
You know what else pisses me off about this argument is he gets into the 10 Commandments and he's like, this is the greatest moral code ever from the ancient world. It's like, greatest moral code, the first 4 about how much of a douchebag God is and how you have to love Him. Like, you have to love Him. A perfect God needs to be loved. Never once in the 10, like there are two good commandments out of the 10. Like, that's the best 10. Like, honestly, like, do not rape isn't in there.
No.
Like,
no, that's okay.
Incest isn't in there. Child molestation isn't in there. Like, that's the best 10 God could come up with.
I don't know why Craig's argument hasn't been like all over the news and all over the media. It just seems to have been kind of overlooked because ultimately at the end of the day, he says genocide is okay as long as God tells you to do it. That's the 50 words or less. That's what he has to say. And I remember when I read Dawkins' book, The God Delusion. It's a God bashing book, and I liked it a lot. But one of the things that he says is there's a whole chapter devoted to what he calls "What's the harm?" Right? And so, like me as an atheist, I'm walking through my day, and I see people who are religious moderates. And fine, I may not agree with their beliefs, but I was always sort of the opinion, like, whatever, I have my beliefs, they have their beliefs, even though I think theirs are wrong, what's the harm? And now, in the argument that Dawkins makes is when religious moderates simply leave the door open for religious extremism. And here is a guy who's the poster boy for religious moderation saying it's okay to commit genocide.
And that's a problem. I mean, the Holocaust was carried out.
He didn't just leave the door open for religious extremism. He kicked it down.
I mean, like, Hitler was a Roman Catholic. His views on Jews and like Germans in general, the people that carried out the Holocaust, regardless of Hitler's affiliation, were by and large Catholics and Lutherans. And the Catholics at the time have had a long history of the concept of Jewish deicide, that the Jews killed Christ. I mean, during the Crusades, Crusader Knights would make stops along the way to the Holy Land to sack and pillage, Jewish villages throughout Europe. It's a very long history. And Martin Luther, is famous for when he proposed that the Jews should join his congregation and they turned him down. He wrote a book called The Jews and Their Lies. I mean, it was...
Don't read about that one in...
Yeah. No, you don't. It was only a couple years ago that the Lutheran Church sort of made a comment about their founders' very ardent anti-Semitism. But I mean, those are the two things that really formulated this idea that, like, it's okay to kill the Jews because they killed Christ.
Yeah, well,
I mean, right there, God okays it.
God says it's okay,
is
man.
Genocide
do whatever
okay?
you want.
And if you follow Craig's argument to its logical end, and that's exactly where it is.
But I disagree with Craig. I mean, we all do.
Of course.
Let's make that clear.
I'm just pointing out, I mean, like, you said, where's the harm? And there it is right there. Like, making a justification.
Well, when I read that chapter about, like, where's the harm, I was like, well, he's got a good point, right? But I never thought I'd actually see it. I didn't think I would actually see it happen. And there it is.
It's right there. All right.
Guy drives me crazy.
Needless to say, I'll make the that article up for the show notes. Read it through. Send us comments back. I mean, you can always email us at nonreligious@zombie-popcorn.com. You can call us 757-337-2195. Leave a voicemail if you think we got something wrong. I think we're beating a dead horse now, so we're gonna move on. So some of you, if you follow us on Facebook, you may have noticed that we've made our first book club recommendation.
Woo!
Bart Ehrman's Misquoting Jesus. This is one of my favorite books on the subject of, religion in general.
Yeah,
Bob,
I'm reading it right now.
Yeah.
It's really good. I like the guy's perspective in that he had that born again Christian moment, and now he's on the other side of the fence. I mean, he's what is he identified now as an agnostic?
He's an agnostic. Yeah. He's what's really funny is actually
he needs to read some more science books.
Him and William Lane Craig both went to Wheaton College, which is a fundamentalist school. I believe it's Billy Graham's school. And they studied Greek under the same professor there. And then they both went to pursue doctoral studies in the same field. But they're so different.
Yeah. I do like Ehrman's books so far, and but he has that. He brings that perspective of a true hardcore believer. He writes from the standpoint of someone who really believed it. And I don't want to say drinking the Kool-Aid, but he was.
And this brings us to our comment on the book. We actually already got some feedback on it.
Well, let people know where they can get the book.
Oh, yes. You can go to bookclub.zombie-popcorn.com, and we have links up. You can get the audiobook, paperback, and the Kindle version.
Nope.
The ebook. Oh,
E-book.
the Nook
Well,
version.
It's just the ebook. It's an EPUB.
EPUB. Okay, well, you can get the ebook version. It's only a couple dollars. Like I said, it's one of my favorite books. I suggest checking it out if you're ever interested in what secular scholars on religion have to say about the veracity of the Bible and biblical history. So our first comment on the subject was... Jason's pulling it up now. Storing your passwords.
I like the
know.
very fact that we got a comment. That means like
Yeah,
somebody's
like
listening.
that.
We have a listener, guys.
I know.
One. No, I think it's a good thing. Here we go.
All
Jason.
two of you.
I'll let Jason read this because he's got a better view of the screen.
This was a comment left on the Facebook post. This is the very reason. Speaking of the book, this is the very reason why people need to get a recovery version of the Bible. And they leave a website called recoveryversion.org, so they can be recovered back to the real truth in the Bible and to God's internal economy, and most important, back to the wonderful person of Christ himself. Get one free here, biblesofamerica.com.
So what? All right. First of all, what is a recovery
It's
version?
it's
of
a
the Bible?
new version of the Bible. What it was it's a new translation. I mean, ad nauseum. There are so many translations of the Bible out there, and I'm going to say right now that 99% of them are garbage. From what I can tell from this, it seems to be pretty much of the same cloth. I haven't read it, so I don't know.
But you ordered it, right?
I haven't yet. Actually, I haven't filled it out.
You get
I
it for
will.
free.
I will be ordering it.
Do
Oh,
not pay
believe
money.
me. Oh no, I'm not sure if I want them to have my address, but I think it's a risk
Just
I'm
send
willing
it
to
here.
take.
I mean, we broadcast out here enough.
Yeah, right.
We just
Care
don't
of.
get hate mail sent to.
Yeah.
But what is this Bible? I mean, I looked at it and it looked like the only thing different is that it has several different references to other text, and it has maps that
It has
correspond.
full color maps.
Full color maps that
Yeah.
correspond to the stories.
Does it have illustrations and pictures too?
See, like I'm a
think so.
yeah. They're made in crayon.
Yeah.
I'm a big Bible nerd, and I only use certain Bibles when I'm doing any research at all. And my favorite is the Revised Standard Version because I have a good college edition, Oxford University Press, Oxford annotated version of the Bible, and it's good. It's got a lot of cross references. It's a little light, but I mean, aside from having like an actual like scholars library broken down each book, since it's like a encyclopedia set that costs a couple $1,000, it's a good one-piece reference. This, I'm gonna order it. I'll go through it. I want to see it. I'm guessing the Isaiah 7:14 test. It's gonna say virgin and not young girl.
I don't understand what the what makes this what's distinctive about the recovery version of the Bible?
It says it has an outline of
it has an
both
outline.
of each book.
For those who don't actually want to
fine,
read
but
the
it doesn't-
Bible, you can read the outline.
I know, right?
Get the basic idea.
Can they send me the comic book version? Because that would be great too.
Graphic novel
I
Jesus.
I just want the 3D version.
Oh, okay. So
And that, yeah.
So, I'm about halfway through Bart Ehrman's book,
Mm-hmm.
Misquoting Jesus. It's really great. I'm learning a lot. It's a really good book, and it's added a new perspective. And I'm a guy who's not read the Bible extensively or even at all. That's okay. But the very fact that our commenters comment is in response to Bart Ehrman's book was, oh, well, you need to read our version of the Bible. And the whole thrust of Bart Ehrman's book is whose version is right? How do you know? There is no way to know because, again, and you've said it before, we don't just have the original texts. We have copies of texts. And he illustrates, item by item, like how the texts are different, and he puts forth ideas about why it might be different.
Yeah, I mean,
so somebody comes along and in response to a book that examines the inconsistencies in biblical text, somebody puts out a new biblical text and says, "Oh well, ours is right."
I mean,
and that's the thing. Like this recovery version, what strikes me is that its New Testament basis is the Nestle Allen 26th edition, and they're not going back to they're not going back to manuscripts. They're using a pre-created Greek version, which has its problems because these people, like right now, I'm doing some transcribing for the International Greek New Testament Project, and what I do is I transcribe Greek manuscripts right now of the Gospel of John. And what you get in the end is when we compile all these manuscripts together, you get what's called a textual apparatus. So you can flip to any verse, and you can see what the base text says. They use the Textus Receptus as the base text. And then you see every single variant of that verse listed with the numbers of Codex 1 says this instead. Codex 3 through 7 completely omit this passage. So this version, the Nestle Allen, has already gone through and plucked which ones they thought were the best. And it's an inherent biases into what, and that's what they're falling into. Rather than saying, scholarship now says to go to the older versions and see what the oldest witnesses say. You go to the Codex Sinaiticus, you go to the Codex Vaticanus, you go to the Codex Alexandrinus.
I think our commenter is I'm sure they're well intentioned and all, but it strikes me as a comment regarding Bart Ehrman's book, Misquoting Jesus. It is a comment that someone would make who hasn't read the book.
well, I think
Of
seriously,
course.
the comment was probably posted, not in direct contrast to the book that we posted. I think it was posted to as what any activist would do when presented with something that they disagree with. They post something that gives the alternative viewpoint to it.
But that's the point I'm trying to make is that Bart Ehrman doesn't in his book, he never presupposes what is true and what is not.
Yeah.
He examines why there's differences, and he offers ideas or hypotheses about why we have those differences, and so the commenter, it's exactly the comment someone would make without having actually read the book. Because if they read the book, they would realize how much their comment is off the mark.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go even further than that and say not only have they not read the book, they're not even familiar with the discussion at hand.
Right, exactly. It's almost a non sequitur.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you're familiar, even if you haven't read anything Bart Ehrman's read, which I suggest if you're interested in textual analysis of the old texts, as soon as you start to understand like the manuscript traditions, the discussion of this Bible over that becomes, I mean, it mind-numbingly like difficult to fathom. Like that anyone could say, no, this one's better. No, this one's better. No, this one's better. I mean, you. It's like they say, like there is no original. Like you say, well, what does the original say? Well, we don't have the original. We don't have copies of the original texts. We don't have copies of the copies of the copies of the original texts. You know, the oldest piece of manuscript we have is a little piece of papyrus that contains a segment of the Gospel of John. It's I think about that big. It has just a couple lines
For the
on either
listeners, that was
side.
about 2.5 inches.
Oh, 2.5 inches, something like that. It's something. It's really tiny. I'm bad at estimating. And it dates to about 125 of the Common Era, so almost a full century after the crucifixion. And it's literally like the only reason we know it's from the Gospel of John is because there's a couple. It's not even full sentences. It's like a couple words from a couple lines that are near each other, and it's like, haha, I think I know where this is. You know.
I just think it's funny that Ehrman writes a whole book about why one person's version of the Bible is no better than anybody else's version, and then somebody comments that, well, I'll read our version, it's the best.
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the things that made me happy. That
I'm glad to get the comment. I am.
Yeah. I'm very happy to get the comment, but I'm also very happy to incorporate this non-religious life into the Zombie Popcorn Book Club, because, as you know, if you've been a follower of Zombie Popcorn, that our books are usually sci-fi, horror related. Every once in a while we get the political discussion, but this is a good addition to the book club, because it actually opens up that discussion and actually enlightens people and carries on this discussion. I mean, I'm very sure the commenter that posted on that has the best intentions in the world about her beliefs. But I highly recommend, no matter what you believe in or don't believe in, you should definitely read this book. I haven't read it, and I plan on reading it after Bob.
I hope our commenter does get the book, and I hope they do read it, and I hope they disagree with it. I hope they find something in it that they can think about and discuss and talk about, because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, like, you know, I always say, I hope they read this. I hope they read this. Not because I agree with the book. Like, I read books I disagree with all the time. All the time. I just picked up, I was over at the coffee shop, and they have a little bin with books in it. And I was like, huh, the 6 Miracles of Calvary. I was like, all right, I'll read it. Like, just to see what the other side has to say. And when you think about it, you start to turn on those critical faculties, and you begin to hone what I like to call a bullshit detector. And it's critical.
No, hey, right. And you know what? Some people will say, like, oh, I would never read that. Well, is your faith and belief so shaky that you can't read someone else's opinion?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like...
And that's with everything. That's not just with faith. I mean, if you can be hardcore Republican, and if you refuse to read anything written by a Democrat or vice versa, or a vegan that refuses to listen to the side of a meat eater or whatever, you should do a lot of soul searching and look at yourself if you're afraid or unwilling to read the opposition and what they have to say, because you should be solid footwork in your groundwork of your belief that it doesn't matter what you read or what you hear but at least to be open to other ideas. I think that's the most important.
Well, it's really good because I think once you start reading things that are in opposition to what you believe, you begin to turn on that bullshit detector. It's really hard to turn it off. Now, even when I read Ehrman or, Price or any of the people that I would normally agree with, every time they make a claim, I find myself going, do I agree with that? What do I think about that? Even if it is something that I would normally agree with, you critically question everything.
I agree. That's a way to think, and I support that 110%. That's how most people should work. I don't take anything, as the de facto truth. The guy I like a lot, right? Richard Dawkins. He has a lot of great things to say, but I'll tell you, the best part about reading Dawkins is reading the guy who disagreed with him, Gould, to hear what Gould had to say. And it's great you feel like you're part of that intellectual discussion when two really brilliant guys disagree.
And plus, it gives you a better understanding of the position. I mean, because you can read something and it will make sense to you, but when you hear the opposition, you kind of go, oh, yeah, maybe I didn't think of that. And you can incorporate that and make a better rounded.
No, that's all part of critical thinking.
Yep.
Because maybe what I think isn't true. And I'm willing to hear a dissenting opinion, and I will evaluate it accordingly.
Yep.
Exactly. If I'm given information and my critical faculties say I can't refute it, evidence points towards it being true, then I change my opinion. It's very simple. It's almost like science.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. If you want to learn more about this, head over to bookclub.zombie-popcorn.com. Pick up the newest recommended reading from this non-religious life. There'll be more coming.
I'm sure between Bob and myself, we can provide tons of books for the book club to.
Definitely.
We'll have another one up next week.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. I think we're getting a little short on time, but I just wanted to talk about it for a second because, he makes my brain hurt. And if you don't know who I'm talking about already, then I'm talking about Glenn Beck.
Glenn Beck.
Ah,
I can't believe we're
God.
actually going to talk about this.
I love every time Glenn Beck shows up in The Onion. They don't use him by name. He's just the pink-faced dimwit.
I just comment on his he's such a leader of the religious conservative community in America.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because he's not even a Protestant Christian. He was raised Catholic, and now he's a Mormon.
In America, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
If he couldn't get crazy enough, he becomes Mormon.
Yeah.
Well, this just shows how well marketing works in America, how well Fox News grips individual lives and molds them into whatever they see fit. And the fact that he's outgrown his pants for Fox News and started his own independent, which he still works for Fox News, but that we won't go into that. But to start his own religious-based radio show.
Dude, I thought Fox News canned him. I thought
no, it's a big publicity thing. Mm-hmm. What happens if you read the fine line of his contract? He canceled his show so he could do his independent thing. Uh-huh. But he's actually still contributing to all the other shows behind the scenes and will be guest appearances of him with all the other Fox News stuff. So he's behind the scenes pulling the strings, producer as
I hate Fox News so much.
But
gosh, I hate them so much.
But if given, his new thing will be the next Pat Robertson, the next Billy Graham, the next Robert Tilton type thing. That's not in the terms of put your hands on the screen, I will heal you. It will be in the vein of Fox News-esque bullshit mixed in with this is all for God.
Yeah. I'm
Well,
sure
you know,
when they
well,
cast him.
Isn't that just what Craig said? It's okay to be wrong as long as you have God on your side.
Yeah.
Because God's never wrong. I'm sure when they brought him in, though, they were hoping, Mormonism is very closely tied into Christianity. It's not quite Christianity. I say Mormonism is to Christianity what Judaism is, what Christianity is to Judaism. It's an outgrowth, but it is entirely its own separate thing.
Yeah.
And
It's its own flavor of crazy.
But when
It
Fox
really
News brought
is. It
when
is.
Fox News brought in Glenn Beck, they didn't bring him under his press release, and the things that they put out there was that he was a former comedian that was upset with the way
he's
nation
hilarious.
with the nation the way the nation is going, that he felt compelled to move to speak out against what is wrong with America today, and Fox News embraced him and gave him
And
the
that's
show.
fine. I mean, we have Penn Jillette, and
I love Penn
we
Jillette.
have Henry Rollins, and we have.
I don't like Henry Rollins. I said it. Who cares?
and
That's
we have
fine.
tons of people
we
who
all
aren't.
have guys we like to hear would talk. We like to hear what
Yeah.
they have to say. And on my list of people, I like to hear what they have to say. Glenn Beck is not on it. He's not even.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what Glenn Beck has to say because he is the pink-faced dimwit, and he says things that are demonstrably false, and he says things that are just really out of whack with what I think and feel.
But he is molding the way America thinks in terms of it. I mean, because if you watch the new left media back in the day of the Tea Party, when they were doing their rallies and stuff, the guy that has all the YouTube videos on, where he would go up and just ask people at Tea Party convention questions. There were people with Glenn Beck's commandments on their T-shirts, because Glenn Beck has his own commandments, and they worship the ground he walks on, thinks he is the new voice, the new movement, the new, and he thinks he's the new Martin Luther King for the nation. I mean, because that's with his rally. and stuff. But now he actually sat down and had a meeting with Billy Graham not too long ago. Billy Graham, which, if anybody knows, he's one of the biggest figureheads in.
You know what I think it is. This is my cynical nature coming out. This reminds me of L. Ron Hubbard when he was like, writing money's pretty good, but the real money is in religion. Yeah. And I think Glenn Beck knows that too.
And that is exactly what he's doing. I feel that is
That's
right on
that's
the
what
head.
I said to Jason when we started right before we started the show. I said,
You're in the
I know the Bible. I could preach. Benny Hinn makes like $200 million a year. I am in the wrong fucking business. Like,
why are we sitting in here?
God, I can
Messing
smack
this
someone
up.
with a chair and tell them they're healed.
Yeah, dude. You could be
Shit.
in like one of those new life, young life hipster ministries.
Exactly.
And you would rock it, dude. You
God.
would kill.
I got tattoos.
I think we're going to right now.
Oh.
Everybody listening, Zombie Public Network is now becoming the religious network. The zombie
God.
will be
Now, my
crying.
ethical backbone won't let me do that.
I
man.
know. That's the only thing stopping me is the fact that I
I
have
just-
integrity.
Yeah. Damn that integrity.
But that integrity can be paid for with your first donation check.
Yeah, right. I'm like Marjo, only I didn't actually do it first before I found my,
No, we would never endorse that action from anyone here at Zombie Public.
Unless you make a lot of money from it.
Right. I have to make a lot of money.
God, $200 million. That's stupid.
Dude, you would be an awesome young life preacher, dude. You would kick ass.
Because
I've seen those
in the wrong.
guys.
Yeah, no, they're all tools.
I'm not saying you're a tool. That's not where I was going.
But,
I'm just saying
I know
you'd
you
be
said
good.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think that.
To jump back on track of Glenn Beck, though,
Yeah, sorry.
I just want to say, the religion and the politics thing, they tie it together. Because in Mormonism, there's a form of founding father reverence, like the founding fathers, and I find it in right-wing conservatism in the U.S. today, it's the similar thing. And I don't want to turn this into a politics show because there's 5
We can start that show next
trillion
week.
bajillion of those, and we can start that next week exactly.
we could talk about it with regards
to
to
religion.
religion. Yeah.
But so many of the founding fathers were deists.
I thought they were all deists.
Not all of them. There were some Christians, but
define that.
The bigs. Deism is the belief that there was some sort of creator God, but after the creation of the world or the universe, God stepped out. There's no intervention at all.
Yeah, well, isn't that like they call it like the clockwork God or something like that?
God is a first cause, and then God takes a step out. Some of them are really vocal about it. Thomas Paine is one of the biggest ones. Thomas Jefferson.
Jefferson
Adams,
was a big deist.
John Adams, huge. Benjamin Franklin said, lighthouses are more useful than churches.
Yeah.
George Washington was probably the most silent about it, but he would go to church infrequently and always leave before communion. And I believe the pastor was, I can't think of the pastor's name. I have it quoted in one of my scribe pages. I'll make it available for the show notes. He actually was confronted by the pastor saying, "Hey, it's very distracting to people that you leave before communion." And George Washington was like, "You're right. I can see how that'd be a problem, be distracting for people." And from that day on, he just stopped going.
No, Jefferson wrote the Jefferson Bible, where he took out all references of Jesus or any kind of
anything miraculous or supernatural.
Miraculous occurrences in the Bible gone.
It was the moral teachings of Jesus of Nazareth or something like that. I think was the full title of it.
Yeah,
but it's colloquially called the Jefferson Bible.
Maybe.
Reading the Bible's boring now. Few of us can get through it. And Paine was huge. I mean, he was a free thinker. He was part not just of the American Revolution, but the French Revolution as well. When free thinking and atheism really got its root. So,
I just think it's funny that Jefferson, who wanted no reverence at all, is now the focal point of this this Glenn Beck reverence of the founding fathers. Like if Jefferson were alive today, I don't think this would be what he wanted.
Well, Glenn Beck is notorious for twisting history and twisting what dead people wanted and what.
Well, that's Mormonism in general.
Yeah,
the baptism of the dead.
Yeah,
it's one of their big things. They posthumously baptize people and call them Mormons.
So that's obvious.
That's new to me. That's crazy.
And it's just what burns me about it. I don't care if you believe in God. I don't care if you're atheist, agnostic, or whatever. But if you're gonna follow Glenn Beck, you're a fucking idiot. And the fact
how you really feel.
it's just that. Just because the dude's on TV and he was on Fox News or whatever, and he may be charismatic, I don't know.
I don't even think he's that charismatic.
I don't either. But there's something that is. It has to be awesome marketing, and I have to learn how they do this. But for anybody to believe what he has to say and follow him, and for him to be so popular that he can do an independent thing away from big studios, do his own thing, and still have that much following and that much money behind him, there's something fundamentally fucking wrong with our nation. And I wish I could just say, oh yeah, they're following because they want to see a train wreck, but that's not what's happening. They are following because they were believers, and
there's money in peddling bullshit. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said I should be a preacher.
But I think with regards to Glenn Beck, I think sometimes like people, I think he. I don't want to say panders, but he definitely says things that people on the surface. He throws out almost pop culture platitudes, and he says things that people want to hear, and he says things that sound reassuring, and he points out the easy solutions, and he points to problems that seem right. And here's the big lesson in critical thinking. Everything is more nuanced and more complicated than you could ever imagine. Just anytime you think you have a a 10-second solution to something, because that's all Glenn Beck ever throws out there. It is a lot more complicated than that. It is so much more complicated. You have only barely scratched the surface. And nobody wants to spend the time to think about a nuanced approach to a problem, or no one wants to think about the complexities of a problem and how problems are layered and multifaceted. And it's easier to think of a 10-second pop culture platitude. Yeah. And I think that's his stock in trade. That's why he is popular, and people hear it and they go, "Oh yeah, wow, that's great."
It's like you get a good slogan, and that people can chant along with. They'll follow it easier than actually, facts.
It's
you know
always
what though?
more complicated.
There's that's in religion too. You know, when you're singing psalms like in church. I don't know. I know you grew up religious.
I've been to church. Yeah.
I don't know how.
I know what it
how
is.
religious your upbringing was though. When you're singing psalms in church, because you're singing them and it's like it's you have a nice atmosphere. You never realize how fucking awful they are. Like what is it? Psalm 137 verse 9. Psalm 137. I was by the rivers of Babylon. That ends verse 9 with dashing babies' heads against rocks to kill them.
Nice.
That's a good song.
But again, as long as God said it was okay.
Again,
it's true.
Exactly,
there is no wrong if God says it. He's a creator. I mean, like we said yesterday, if I created a sandcastle and everybody loved that sandcastle, I could destroy it, and nobody could do anything because it was mine.
But I think we're out of time, so we're going to wrap it up. So what do you think about Glenn Beck? Are we right? Are we wrong? Send us comments, emails, outbursts. Tell us we're assholes. I don't care.
Glenn Beck T-shirts.
You can always email us at nonreligious@zombie-popcorn.com, or you can call the ZPN hotline at 757-337-2195 and leave a voicemail. Don't shout. It hurts Jason's ears. Yeah. That's all I have to say.
Anybody shouted yet?
Yeah. No, nobody shouted yet. Everybody's been really nice. But I also want to add before we run, you can go to the This Non-Religious Life Facebook page, which is on facebook.com/This Non-Religious Life, and we made it much easier for you to watch the episodes of This Non-Religious Life. Every broadcast will now be featured on the Facebook page, so you don't even have to leave your favorite website. You can chat with your friends, you can share, and you can watch this show. And we also made it easier for you to read Ken's writings starting this evening. There will be several pieces of literature that he wrote that you can read for free on the Facebook page. It's going to be a one-stop shop for everything free of This Non-Religious Life. Again, you can also check out everything else the book club at bookclub.zombie-popcorn.com.
All right.
We're done?
We're done.
Goodbye.
All right. Adios. Have a good day.
Jesus got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Jesus got out here. Then I read this. It says Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.